My wife said, "The love is gone." I just looked at her and replied, "Then stop acting." A few hours later, her things were in the guest room, but that was only the beginning. Sophia had just announced that she was done with our marriage and that her affection was now just a performance. A few hours later, she discovered I had moved all her belongings to the guest room and changed the Wi-Fi password. When she started to cry, calling me dramatic, I simply replied that I was doing the same thing she was. Tuesday evening had started like any other. I was scrolling through Netflix, trying to find something decent to watch after dinner, when she walked into the living room with that look. You know the one. It was the same expression she wore right before dropping one of her emotional bombshells. "We need to talk," she announced. I crossed my arms, muted the TV, and turned to face her. "What's on your mind?" She took a deep breath, as if preparing for a grand performance. "I'm going to be completely honest with you. The love is gone. I'm just acting now. This marriage isn't real anymore. I'm only staying because it's convenient." The words just hung there in the air. Most husbands probably would have panicked, begged, asked what they had done wrong, or promised to change. I looked at her for a long moment, processing what she had just said. "Okay," I replied calmly. "Then stop acting." Her eyebrows shot up. This was clearly not the reaction she was expecting. "What do you mean?" she asked, her confidence suddenly faltering. "I mean exactly what I said. If you're just acting, then please stop. Why waste both of our time with fake gestures and a hollow performance?" She opened her mouth, then closed it again. I could almost see the gears in her head recalibrating. This was not in her script. I just wanted you to know where I stand," she stammered. "And I appreciate your honesty. I really do. Now I know where we both stand." I unmuted the TV and went back to browsing for a movie. She stood there for another minute, clearly waiting for me to chase after her, to fight for us, to do anything other than simply accept her declaration. When nothing happened, she huffed and stormed upstairs. That's when I got to work. Step 1 was the router. I changed the Wi-Fi password to something she would never, ever guess. Next, I went upstairs and methodically gathered her things. Her clothes from our shared dresser and closet, her countless toiletries from the bathroom, her personal items from her nightstand, all went into laundry baskets. The guest room had been gathering dust since her sister's visit last Christmas. I made 3 round trips, systematically moving everything. Her jewelry box, her laptop charger, the romance novels she never admitted to reading, even that weird essential oil diffuser she swore helped her sleep. When I was finished, it was as if she had never shared our room at all. I was back on the couch, engrossed in a mountaineering documentary, when I heard her coming back downstairs. She had her phone in her hand, probably trying to connect to the Wi-Fi. "Why isn't the internet working?" she snapped. "It's working just fine," I replied without looking up from the screen. She walked into the living room, frustration etched on her face. "My phone says the network requires a password." "That is correct." "Well, what's the password?" "I changed it." She looked at me as if I had grown a second head. "Why would you change it?" I paused the documentary and turned to her. "Because you said you were just acting. I figured I should stop subsidizing your fake performance." "This is ridiculous. I live here too. You said the love was gone and you were only here because it's convenient. I'm just making it a little less convenient." Her face began to turn red. "You can't just change the Wi-Fi password like that." "I just did." She threw her arms up in exasperation. "This is insane. And where's my stuff? My perfume isn't on the dresser. Check the guest room." The color drained from her face. "You moved my stuff. You said the marriage wasn't real and that you were acting. I thought you'd prefer your own space to continue your performance." She bolted upstairs. I could hear her stomping around, opening and closing doors. When she came back down, her eyes were wide with disbelief. "You moved everything. My clothes, my jewelry, all of it." "That's right. You can't just decide that." I stood up and faced her directly. "Actually, I can. You made a unilateral decision about our marriage. You declared the love dead and said you were only staying out of convenience. I am simply adapting to the new terms you've set." "I was being dramatic," she insisted. "Me too," I said calmly. The words hit her like a splash of cold water. She actually took a step back. "That's not what I meant," she muttered. "Then you should have said what you meant, instead of saying something you didn't." Tears began to well up in her eyes. The same tears that had worked so many times before when she wanted to manipulate a situation in her favor. You're supposed to fight for us, she said, her voice cracking. Fight for what? You just told me there was nothing left. What is there to fight for? You said the love was gone. But I didn't mean it. You meant exactly what you said, Sophia, and I heard you loud and clear. I sat back down and resumed the documentary. She stood there for several more minutes, waiting for me to crack, to apologize, to beg her to come back to our bed. Instead, I watched a team of climbers ascend a mountain in Nepal. When she finally went upstairs, I heard the guest room door close. Then I heard it open again, and then close again. She was probably expecting me to come up and comfort her, to tell her we could work things out. I ordered a pizza and watched 2 more documentaries. Around midnight, I went up to our room. The house was quiet. The guest room door was closed, and no light filtered out from underneath it. I brushed my teeth, changed into comfortable clothes, and got into bed. For the first time in months, I had the entire king-size mattress to myself. No one stealing the covers. No one complaining about the room temperature. No one sighing dramatically for attention. I slept better than I had in years. The next morning, I woke up feeling rested and made coffee like any other Wednesday. Sophia came down around 8, looking like she had barely slept. Her hair was a mess, and she had that puffy-eyed look that comes from either crying or a sleepless night spent rehashing conversations. Good morning, I said pleasantly, without looking up from the news on my phone. She muttered something back and opened the fridge. I could feel her watching me, waiting for a sign that last night had just been a bad dream. The Wi-Fi still isn't working, she said, testing the waters. It's working perfectly. You know what I mean. I finally looked up from my phone. I know exactly what you mean. You want access to something I pay for while you're living a life you described as fake and convenient. She slammed the fridge door. Stop being so petty. I'm not being petty, I'm being practical. You set new rules yesterday. I'm just following them. Those weren't rules. I was just venting. It's funny how venting and honesty sound exactly the same. She sat across from me at the kitchen table, trying a different approach as the tears started to well up again. Listen, I'm sorry. I had a bad day and I said things I didn't mean. Which part didn't you mean? The part where the love is gone, or the part where you're only staying for convenience? All of it. That's interesting, because you seemed pretty convinced at the time. I finished my coffee and stood up to rinse the mug in the sink. She grabbed my arm. Please, can we just go back to normal? I looked at her hand on my arm, then at her face. What's normal, Sophia? The version where you say awful things, and then expect me to pretend like nothing happened? Is that the normal you want to go back to? She let go of my arm. I didn't mean to hurt you. I'm not hurt. I'm informed. There's a big difference. I grabbed my keys from the counter. I'll be home around 6. The guest room has everything you need. Where are you going? To work. You know, that place where people don't just act. The jab landed. I could see it on her face as I walked out the door. When I got home that evening, she was waiting for me in the living room with what looked like a prepared speech. She had clearly spent the day strategizing how to fix this. I made dinner, she announced. I glanced toward the kitchen and smelled something that could be chicken. That's nice of you. Your favorite. Chicken parmesan. I just nodded and went upstairs to change out of my work clothes. When I came back down, she had set the dining room table with our nice plates and had even lit candles. The whole setup. This looks elaborate, I said, taking my seat. I wanted to do something special. The food was actually quite good, but I could see she was watching every bite I took, analyzing my every reaction. So, she said after a few minutes of tense silence, I was thinking we could talk about yesterday. Talk about what? About how we can just move on. I put down my fork and looked right at her. Move on from what exactly? From your honest assessment of our marriage. It wasn't honest. I was upset. About what? She hesitated. This was the part she hadn't rehearsed. I don't know. Things just felt routine, that's all. So you decided to blow everything up. I didn't want to blow everything up. I wanted you to, I don't know, react. I did react. Not like this. I wanted you to fight for us, to show me you still cared. I leaned back in my chair. So, let me get this straight. You told me our marriage was dead and that you were faking everything because you wanted me to prove that I cared. When she heard it rephrased like that, she seemed to realize how ridiculous it sounded. It's more complicated than that. No, it's not complicated at all. You played a game, and you lost. It's not a game. Then stop playing them. She started crying again. Not yesterday's manipulative tears, but genuine tears of frustration this time. I don't know how to fix this, she sobbed. There's nothing to fix. You were clear about your position. I accepted it. But I don't want you to accept it. Then you shouldn't have said it. I finished my dinner while she cried softly across the table. When I was done, I stood up and started clearing my plate. Thank you for dinner. It was very good. That's it. That's all you're going to say. I stopped at the kitchen door. What would you like me to say, Sophia? That I forgive you? That we can go back to how things were? How things were included you feeling so miserable that you had to declare our marriage dead. Why would I ever want to go back to that? She had no answer. I put my plate in the dishwasher and went upstairs. As I passed the guest room, I could still hear her crying downstairs. Around 9, she knocked on the bedroom door. Can I come in? It's your house, too. She opened the door, but stayed in the doorway. I was reading a book, something I had been meaning to get back to for months. I miss you, she said softly. I'm right here. You know what I mean. I looked up from my book. Do I? Because yesterday, you told me all of this was fake anyway. She walked over to the bed. Can I sleep in here tonight? The guest room has a perfectly good bed. I don't want to sleep in the guest room. Then you probably shouldn't have said things that would put you in there. She stood there for another minute, hoping I would cave. When I went back to my book, she finally left. I heard the guest room door close again. A few minutes later, I heard her talking on the phone in a low voice, probably calling her sister or her best friend for advice on how to handle a husband who was no longer playing by the old rules. I finished 2 more chapters before turning off the light. As I settled into the quiet, spacious bed, I realized that something had fundamentally changed. For years, I had been the one avoiding conflict, keeping the peace, constantly trying to make her happy. Yesterday, she had accidentally shown me what happened when I finally stopped trying. Thursday morning brought a new strategy. She was already dressed and making breakfast when I came downstairs. Not just coffee and toast, but a full spread, eggs, bacon, fresh orange juice, even those fancy hash browns she usually saved for the weekends. Good morning, she said with a forced cheerfulness. I figured I'd make a real breakfast. It smells good. I poured myself some coffee and checked my phone. She kept stealing sideways glances at me, waiting for praise or appreciation that didn't come. So, I was thinking, she said while flipping the bacon. Maybe this weekend we could do something fun. Go to that new restaurant in town, maybe see a movie. Sounds like you have plans. No, we have plans. Together. I looked up from my phone. Really? On Tuesday, you said this marriage was fake. Today, you want to plan date nights. Which one is the real you, Sophia? The bacon sizzled in the silence. I'm trying, she said softly. Trying to do what exactly? Fix things by pretending Tuesday never happened. She turned off the burner and faced me. What do you want me to do? Grovel at your feet and apologize for the rest of my life? I don't want you to do anything. You were very clear on where we stand. Stop saying that. Stop giving me reasons to say it. She served breakfast without another word. I ate, thanked her, and left for work. In my rearview mirror, I could see her standing at the kitchen window, watching me drive away. That evening, I stopped at Target on the way home. I picked up some things I had been wanting for a long time. New pillows, a coffee maker for my home office, and a few other items that would make the house more comfortable for me. When I walked in with the shopping bags, she immediately wanted to know what I had bought. Just some stuff for the house. What kind of stuff? I pulled out the coffee maker. This is going upstairs in my office. It's a hassle to come downstairs for coffee every morning. Her face fell. You're setting up your own coffee station? It just makes sense. It's more efficient. I started upstairs with my purchases, and she followed me. You're making yourself too comfortable up there, she said, watching me unpack the coffee maker on my desk. It's my room. It's our room. According to you, nothing in this marriage is ours anymore. That call to her sister must have given her some new ideas, because on Friday night, she deployed the nuclear option. I came home to find her mother sitting at our kitchen table. Hello, Leo, her mother said with that specific tone mothers use when they believe their daughter has been deeply wronged. Good evening. We need to have a little talk. I put down my keys and looked at Sophia, who suddenly found the floor tile pattern incredibly fascinating. About what? About how you're treating my daughter. I pulled out a chair and sat down across from her. How am I treating her? She tells me you've banished her to the guest room over some silly argument. Did she tell you what the argument was about? Her mother's confidence wavered slightly. She said you two had some words. Did she mention what those words were? Silence. She told me our marriage was dead and that she was only acting because it's convenient. I calmly said that if that was the case, I would stop making it so convenient for her. Her mother looked back and forth between us. Well, surely she didn't mean it. You can ask her. More silence. Her mother tried a different tactic. Marriage takes work, Leo. You can't just give up at the first sign of trouble. I didn't give up. I listened. Sometimes people say things they don't mean when they're upset. Then they should learn to mean what they say. Her mother was losing ground fast. She looked to her daughter for help, but Sophia just sat there, picking at her nails. Don't you love her? Her mother asked, playing her final card. I love the woman I married. The woman sitting right there informed me that she no longer exists, and that she's just been faking it out of convenience. Which one am I supposed to believe? Her mother left 20 minutes later after giving Sophia a look that clearly said they would be having a very different conversation later. That was pointless, Sophia said after the door closed. Which part? Inviting your mother into our marriage, or me telling her the truth about what you said? She worries about me. Maybe she should. Saturday morning, I did something I hadn't done in years. I called my buddy Mark and a few other guys I used to hang out with before our marriage consumed my weekends. We made plans to watch college football at a sports bar. Where are you going? Sophia asked, watching me get dressed. Out with the guys. What guys? You don't have any friends. I stopped buttoning my shirt and looked at her. I don't have any friends because for the past 3 years, every single weekend has revolved around what you wanted to do, where you wanted to go, and who you wanted to see. That's not true. When was the last time you did something with me that was for me? She couldn't answer. I'll be home around 6. The sports bar was exactly what I needed. Good food, cold beer, and conversation that didn't involve analyzing every word for hidden meanings. Mark noticed I seemed different. You seem more relaxed, man, he said at halftime. Whatever you're doing, keep it up. When I got home, she was waiting for me with a barrage of questions. Where had I gone? Who was there? What did we talk about? Why hadn't I invited her? You don't like sports bars, I reminded her. I could have come anyway. Why would you want to pretend to enjoy something else? The question hung in the air, unanswered. Sunday, I implemented phase 2. While she was getting ready for her usual brunch with her friends, I rearranged the living room. I moved my recliner into the optimal TV viewing position, relocated her decorative pillows that served no functional purpose, and cleared a space for the home gym equipment I had been wanting to set up for a long time. When she got back, the transformation was obvious. What did you do in here? She demanded. I made a few improvements. Where are my pillows? In a box in the closet. This is my living room, too. You should have thought about that before you declared our marriage a fake. She stared at the rearranged space, which now looked more like a place where someone actually lived rather than a spread from a home decor magazine. You can't just change everything like this. Watch me. That evening, she made one last attempt. She put on a nice dress, did her makeup, the whole 9 yards. I was thinking we could order from that Italian place and have a romantic evening. Sounds nice. You should do that. No, we should do it. Together. I looked up from my book. Why? So you can put on more of an act. I'm not acting. Then what has changed between Tuesday and today? I realized I was wrong. About which part? She hesitated again, and in that hesitation, I saw the truth. She wasn't sorry for what she had said. She was sorry for my reaction to it. Everything, she finally said. That's not good enough. What do you want from me? I closed my book and gave her my full attention. I want you to understand that words have consequences. Actions have consequences. You can't just say whatever you want and then expect everything to go back to normal when it doesn't turn out the way you planned. So what happens now? Now, you decide if you actually want to be married, or if you just want the convenience of being married. Because I am done with everything in between. She went upstairs without ordering dinner. I made myself a sandwich and watched a documentary on deep-sea exploration. For the first time in our marriage, I was the one setting the terms. Monday brought desperation. She was up before me, had made coffee, and was dressed like she was going for a job interview. The kitchen counter was covered with printouts from marriage counseling websites. I found someone we can talk to, she announced, waving a brochure. A Dr. Miller. She has excellent reviews, and she has an opening this week. I poured some coffee and glanced at the paper. We don't need counseling. Yes, we do. We need help communicating. We communicated perfectly. You told me the marriage was dead. I believed you. That's not communicating. That's you being stubborn. I sat down and looked at her across the table. What exactly would you tell this counselor? That you said things you didn't mean, and now you're upset that I actually believed you. I would tell her that my husband won't forgive me for making a mistake. It wasn't a mistake, Sophia. Mistakes are accidental. You looked me in the eye and made a deliberate statement about our entire relationship. She sat down with her own coffee, trying to sound reasonable. People say things when they're frustrated, and people react to those things. That's how consequences work. So you're just going to punish me forever? I'm not punishing you at all. I'm simply not pretending anymore, either. That's it. The counseling brochure stayed on the counter all week. Every morning, she would bring up Dr. Miller again. Every morning, I reminded her that we didn't need a referee for a conversation she had already finished. On Wednesday evening, I came home to find her cooking again. Not one of the elaborate productions from before, but real cooking. The kind she used to do when we were dating. A slow-cooked pot roast with vegetables, mashed potatoes, even homemade rolls. It smells incredible, I said honestly, and her face lit up. It's your grandmother's recipe. You mentioned once that you missed it. We ate mostly in silence, but it was a comfortable silence this time. She wasn't playing a part, not trying to manipulate the situation. She was just cooking good food. Thank you, I said when we were finished. That was really, really good. You're welcome. For the first time since this whole thing started, she seemed genuine. Not desperate, not calculating, just present. But then, she tried to leverage it. So, maybe things can start getting back to normal now. And there it was. The transaction. Good dinner equals forgiveness. It was a very good dinner, I said carefully. But one dinner doesn't erase what you said. Her face fell. What will erase it? I don't know if anything can. The honesty of that statement hit her harder than any anger would have. Thursday morning, she tried a different approach. Instead of trying to fix things, she started asking questions. What made you so calm about all this? She asked at breakfast. Most men would have yelled or gotten angry. What good would yelling have done? I don't know. It would have shown that you cared. I do care. That's why I took you seriously. She stirred her coffee thoughtfully. I was waiting for you to fight me on it. Fight you on what? Your own feelings about our marriage. Those weren't my real feelings. Then why did you say them? She was silent for a long time. I wanted a reaction. You got one. Not the one I wanted. I finished my eggs and looked at her. What reaction did you want? I wanted you to, I don't know, prove me wrong. Show me the marriage wasn't dead. By ignoring what you told me? By deciding your words don't matter? Is that really the kind of relationship you want? She didn't have an answer. That weekend, something changed. On Saturday afternoon, I was setting up the gym equipment in the living room when she came downstairs in workout clothes. What are you doing? I asked. I figured I'd work out with you. I glanced at her outfit. Brand new yoga pants, matching top, the headband still had the tag on it. Since when do you work out? Since now. I thought it could be something we do together. I continued assembling the weight bench. You don't have to pretend to like exercising for my sake. I'm not pretending. I stopped what I was doing and looked at her. 3 weeks ago, you called my gym equipment yard sale junk and said it made the house look like a locker room. I was wrong about that, too. But she wasn't just standing there waiting for permission. She started stretching, and I realized she must have been watching YouTube videos or something. Her form wasn't perfect, but she knew the basic movements. Have you been practicing? I asked. Maybe. For the next hour, we worked out together. She didn't complain, she didn't quit early, and she didn't make a big deal out of it. She just exercised. When we were finished, she was sweaty and tired, but looked genuinely satisfied. That was harder than I thought, she said, catching her breath. But you kept up. I'm tougher than you think. Something shifted in that moment. We weren't going back to the old dynamic, but we were moving towards something new. That evening, she made dinner again. Nothing fancy this time, just pasta and a salad. We ate and talked about normal things. Work, the news, a funny story about her commute. It felt like a glimpse of what a real partnership could be. After dinner, she helped clean up without being asked. Then she sat on the couch and put on a documentary about sharks. I thought you hated documentaries, I said, sitting down. I hate boring documentaries. This one looks interesting. We watched it all the way through. She asked questions, made comments, and seemed genuinely engaged. When it was over, she stretched and yawned. I'm exhausted. That workout really kicked my butt. She headed for the stairs, then paused. Thank you for letting me work out with you today. You don't need my permission to exercise. I know, but thank you anyway. She went up to the guest room without asking about sleeping arrangements or hinting at coming back to the master bedroom. She was just accepting the situation as it was. Later that night, lying in bed, I thought back over the day. She had shown me something different. Not the desperate woman trying to manipulate her way back into my good graces, but someone who was genuinely trying to understand what had gone wrong. For the first time since this had started, I wondered if she was capable of real change. But I also knew that one good day didn't erase years of emotional manipulation and game playing. The real question was whether she could sustain this new approach long enough to prove it was real. 2 weeks passed with this new routine. She worked out with me every other day, cooked meals without turning them into grand gestures, and stopped trying to negotiate her way back into the master bedroom. The house felt different, quieter, but I could see she was watching me, studying my reactions, trying to gauge what would come next. On a Tuesday morning, she finally asked the question I had been waiting for. What would it take? She said at breakfast. For what? For you to trust me again. For us to be us again. I put down my coffee mug and really looked at her. The desperation was gone, and so was the manipulation. She looked tired but not defeated, more like someone who had finally stopped running and was ready to face whatever came next. That's the first honest question you've asked since this whole thing started, I said. So what's the honest answer? I leaned back in my chair. I need to know that you understand what you did. I said awful things that I didn't mean. No, that's what you tell yourself to make it easier. What you actually did was try to manipulate my emotions to get a reaction. You weaponized our relationship because you were bored. She flinched as if I had slapped her. You're right, she said softly. Say it. She took a shaky breath. I weaponized our relationship because I was bored. And I hurt someone I loved because I wanted drama more than I wanted peace. We sat in silence for a full minute. What else? I asked. I don't know what else. You taught me that your words mean nothing. That when you say something important, I can't believe it, because you might just be testing me or looking for a reaction. Tears started to form in her eyes, but this time, she didn't try to use them. How do I fix that? I don't know if you can. But you haven't left. No, I haven't left. Why not? Because the woman I've seen over the past few weeks is someone I could actually be married to. But not the woman from before. The woman from before was exhausting. Always testing, always pushing boundaries, always turning everything into a drama. I loved her, but I didn't like her very much. The tears spilled over, but she wiped them away quickly. I don't want to be that person anymore. Then don't be. Is it that simple? The choice is simple. Following through on it is the hard part. She nodded and finished her coffee in silence. When she stood up to leave for work, she stopped at the door. If I can prove that I've changed, really changed, would you consider letting me move back into our bedroom? Our bedroom was never the problem. Our marriage was the problem. She met my eyes. Then would you consider letting me back into our marriage? The question hovered between us. Ask me again in 6 months, I said. She left without another word. That evening, something remarkable happened. Instead of trying to win me back, she focused on herself. She came home from work, changed into her workout clothes without being asked, and did a full routine on her own while I finished some paperwork. When I came downstairs, she was cooling down with some stretches. Good workout? I asked. I'm getting stronger, she replied, and I realized she wasn't just talking about exercise. Dinner was simple but good. We talked about her day at work, a problem she was solving with a difficult client. She asked for my advice, not as a ploy to reconnect, but because she genuinely wanted my input. After dinner, she did something that surprised me. Instead of settling down to watch TV or trying to force some time together, she went upstairs, and I heard her on the phone with her sister. But it wasn't the desperate, advice-seeking call from before. I could hear her side of the conversation through the guest room door. No, I really messed up, she was saying. No, he's not being unreasonable at all. I said things that would have ended most marriages. There was a pause. I don't know if he'll ever forgive me, but I'm learning to become someone who deserves forgiveness. Another pause. No, I'm not moving back in with Mom. This is my house, and he's my husband. And if there's any chance of fixing this, I have to do the work right here. When she came back down an hour later, she looked different. Resolute. Everything okay? I asked. My sister thinks I should leave, give you some space to cool down. What do you think? I think running away from my problems is what got me into this mess. Running away won't get me out of it. On Friday evening, she did something that changed the entire dynamic. I was in the living room reading when she came and sat across from me with a notebook. I wrote down all the manipulative things I can remember doing in our marriage, she said quietly. I looked up from my book. Why? Because I need to see it all in one place. And because you deserve to know that I know. She opened the notebook and started to read. The fake emergencies to get my attention when I was focused on work. The silent treatments designed to make me chase her. The vague threats to leave when she didn't get what she wanted. The guilt trips about my hobbies, my friends, my family. It took her 26 minutes to read the whole list. When she finished, she closed the notebook and looked at me. I turned our marriage into a game where I always had to be the winner. And the only way for me to win was for you to lose. Why are you telling me this now? Because I want you to know that I see it. All of it. And I'm ashamed of every single item on this list. She stood up to leave, then turned back. I don't know if sorry means anything after so much damage, but I am. Not sorry I got caught, or sorry that you reacted this way. Just sorry for doing those things to you. She went upstairs, leaving the notebook on the coffee table. I sat there for a long time, just staring at it. Part of me wanted to read her list, to see if she had really captured the full scope of the problem. But another part of me realized the list wasn't for me. It was for her. She was taking inventory of who she had been so she could decide who she wanted to become. Saturday morning, she was up early again. But this time, she was cleaning. Not performative cleaning to show me what a good wife she was, but deep cleaning. Organizing closets, scrubbing baseboards, clearing out years of accumulated clutter. Spring cleaning in November? I asked. More like a life cleaning. She replied without stopping. Getting rid of things that no longer serve a purpose. By Sunday evening, the house looked and felt different. Lighter. She had donated bags of clothes she never wore, books she had never read, and decorations that just took up space. How do you feel? I asked her, surveying the newly organized living room. Like I can finally breathe again. That night, after she went up to the guest room, I realized that somewhere in the past month, I had started looking forward to coming home again. Not because she was winning me back, but because she was becoming someone worth being with. 3 months later, she asked the question again, but differently. Do you think we can make this work? We were cleaning up after dinner when she said it. No prep, no manipulation, just a direct question. Right now, as we are today, she clarified. Not someday, not if I keep getting better. Right now. I put down the plate I was drying and really looked at her. She had completely changed. The woman who weaponized emotions now spoke directly. The woman who created drama now solved problems. The woman who played games now played fair. Yes, I said. I think we can. Her shoulders relaxed, as if she had been holding her breath for months. What would that look like? She asked. It would look a lot like this. You being yourself, me being myself, and both of us choosing to be here every day. As for the bedroom situation, move your things back whenever you're ready. But understand that the rules have changed for good. What rules? No more games. No more manipulation. No more saying things you don't mean just to get a reaction. If you're unhappy, we talk about it and fix it. If you're done, you leave. But there is no more emotional warfare in this house. She nodded slowly. I can live with those rules. Even when you're angry or frustrated? Especially then. That weekend, she moved her things back into our bedroom. There was no fanfare or celebration. It was just practical, quiet, and felt like the natural next step. 6 months later, we were stronger than we had ever been. Not because we went back to how things were, but because we had built something entirely new on the ruins of the old relationship. She had learned to communicate without manipulation, and I had learned to enforce boundaries without anger. The woman who had once declared our love dead now showed me every day what real love looked like. Not the desperate, game-playing version from before, but the stable, authentic connection between two people who choose each other every single day. She never again tested our relationship with dramatic declarations, and I never again accepted behavior that disrespected what we had built together. We both learned that sometimes, the only way to save something is to be willing to lose it completely. Comment. This story really got me thinking about the quiet strength of self-respect. It shows that setting a boundary is not an act of aggression, but an act of clarity. Sometimes, The most compassionate thing you can do for someone is to let them experience the natural consequences of their words. Real growth begins when we stop trying to manage another person's reactions and start taking responsibility for our own actions. I believe we all eventually face a choice between the chaos we are used to and the peace we deserve. Choosing that peace is not weakness. It is valuing your well-being enough to stop playing games. A healthy relationship is built on a foundation of safety, not a series of tests. Healing isn't about erasing the past, but about learning from it to build a more honest future. I hope this reminds you that you are absolutely worthy of that kind of peace. May you always find the courage to protect your own serenity. If you like the stories, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.